He lives by the lake, but where does he stand on my shelf? Here's my ranking of all the NECA Toys Friday the 13th Ultimate Jason Voorhees figures. This is a video I've been wanting to do for a while, and with a little bit of time now on my hands, I thought it'd be a perfect time to go through and rank every single NECA Toys Friday the 13th Jason Voorhees figures. Some things, of course, I want to add into this video as well before we get things started. It won't include also the Cult Classics figures. I kind of really want to stick solely to the Ultimate figures that are in the boxes. Also, figures that would have been in the initial clamshell cases are also omitted in this review list as well. No, what we're going to be doing is we're going to go from my least favorite to my top favorite. And we're going to be covering over every single Jason Voorhees figure. I'm not going to be covering off, though, the accessories that come with each of these. I mean, certainly if you guys wanted to go and look at those individual reviews, they're here, they're found, they're on the channel. But I would look at the individual figures themselves, and we'll talk a little bit about each of them. And, of course, a little bit of participation. If you guys would like to let me know down below in the comment section what your ranking is of the all-time Jason Voorhees figures we've gotten from NECA Toys, excluding, again, the Cult Classics, excluding the retro cloth figures. Those won't be in here as well. Solely just the Ultimate figures. Let's get things started with my least favorite Jason. So, where are we going to start? Well, we're going to start at the bottom of the barrel. This is my least favorite Jason Voorhees from the NECA Toys Friday the 13th Ultimate figures. Now, I wanted to also say as well that the figures that I'm choosing, I've also tried to choose the best lot numbers. With Jason being reissued over the years, sometimes it's made for a better looking figure paint-wise. Sometimes the paint hasn't been as good. So with each of my rankings, I wanted to choose the best example I have of that Jason, and I'll show you guys what that lot number is. This figure, though, the lowest of my list, wasn't necessarily a reissue. It was a reissue, but the reissue changed so many things about it. I don't really want to consider it, though, a reissue of this figure. And even though I am a big fan of the original look of this character, the lowest on the list for me is the Friday the 13th NES Jason, which was the Comic-Con 2013 exclusive. Wait, what? You chose NES Jason as your least favorite figure? Hold on a second. Before you start to throw the turnips at me, I want to show you guys first the box, what he came inside of. Now, I actually, from what I remember, I paid well over $100 to get this guy because there was no way I was able to go to the Comic-Con 2013 to grab and snag this figure. One thing I do like, though, to its credit, is it does have the original NES style art. Down below, it also has power play. It was always really kind of interesting as well that this Jason actually is using the Friday the 13th Part 3 Jason, yet though the artwork always featured New Bloods Jason. The lot number, again, also reiterates the fact that this was released, I should say, in 2013, but then it was reissued later on. And why I kept these two figures separate from one another is just because of the two figures, this was the inferior release of him. Now, one thing also, too, that the reissue did better, not only was they made the mask opaque, they also included the floating bust of Pamela Voorhees, and one of the little treats as well as a collector you would find, if you open up the flap, I hate to say as well, the other flap is not going to make any sound, but the other flap, if you open it up, would actually play the theme song from the game. I do like the interior of it. It does look good. You and your friends are all dead. Game over. Accessories of this figure would have included a glow-in-the-dark machete, which is just off to the corner here, and also a glow-in-the-dark axe. There's the box. Let's put it off to the side. Let's bring in my least favorite Jason Voorhees. I know, it's unbelievable to think that NES Jason would sit so low on my list, and really the only reason why he sits as low as he does is predominantly the fact that they give him a clear mask. They went with more, I think, function than form, because, of course, Jason does have more of the traditional kind of, I would say, like a purplish blue sort of outfit that he has. But then he would have blue hands, he'd have blue shoes, and he would have a blue featured mask. Unfortunately, though, because they made this guy glow in the dark, the mask itself, unfortunately, doesn't look as much like the game. You can see that while the mask looks cool, because this is one of the only, I think this is the only Jason Voorhees we ever have gotten that has a glow-in-the-dark mask like this. It looks good, but it doesn't look at all like the game. If this had only been opaque, like it would have been like a reissue, this figure probably wouldn't have set as low as it did. Now, basically what it would be is still the Friday the 13th Part 3 Jason Voorhees bust. You can see, like, the head sculpt. He only has the one, though, and the head sculpt's fine. I have no real issues with it. Obviously, the coloring of his body is all just basically this purple. The hands are now glow-in-the-dark clear, and, of course, the boots are also that as well. I mean, it's fine for the fact that it's glow-in-the-dark, and it also has nostalgic value to me as well, because, again, like, I remember buying this figure and how cool it was to finally have an NES Jason. But unfortunately, though, because we got somewhat better of a Jason later on as a reissue, this guy ends up being at the bottom of my list. Of course, the articulation is going to be all the same on all these figures, so if you already have the Friday the 13th Part 3 Jason, you already know by now what the articulation is going to go with these figures. But yeah, unfortunately, I hate to say it, the original, and I have to stress this, the original NES Jason is the lowest of my list of my least favorite Friday the 13th Jasons. Of course, as well, if I'm going to be talking about the glow in the dark, let's also bring in the black light, so I show you guys what it looks like when it glows in the dark. Short of maybe just cutting the lights, if you just run yourself like a black light across it, you can see how the mask would have glowed. And it also works down below here as well for the hands, and it works down below as well for his feet. Coming up next on the lowest of lows, my second least favorite Jason. Now, honestly, with this one and the one that's going to come after this in my ranking, I actually had kind of bounced back and forth initially looking at the other one, thinking that was going to be my least favorite. But in the end, though, I decided to choose this one. Not just because I didn't care for the movie at all. I thought it was actually as a remake. Oh, that just probably gave it away. As a remake, though, I didn't think it was as good as Nightmare on Elm Street's remake. And even though, like, the look of Jason was good in the movies, I don't feel like it translated as well to be an interesting looking Jason. Yes, the one that we're talking about in this example is the Friday the 13th remake Jason Voorhees. Now, this one and the one that's going to come higher up on my list was bounced back and forth, and I was kind of thinking at one point it was going to be the other one. Then I went back to the remake, then it went back to the other one, and in the end, though, I wanted to settle on Friday the 13th, the remake Jason. Now, the box-wise, it does look very much like the poster art that we saw in the leading up, of course, to the film. On the back as well, there shows all the things that come included with the figure as well. Now, I know some of you really like the look of remake Jason, and I can understand why. The reason why this guy sits as low on the list as he does is just because, again, like, while he does have a modern look to Jason, I like the classic look of the character a little bit more. As for accessories, the accessory to come include with this figure, of course, you got yourself the fire poker, you got yourself the machete. I suppose I probably could also just open these up and bring them out so you guys can see all the accessories. I didn't want to spend too much time talking about the things that come include with Jason, but you got yourself, of course, the axe, you got the machete, you got the fire poker, you got the screwdriver, you got the little wedged axe there, and you got an alternate hand. The only thing that's missing up here is just the sack mask, because I'm going to be coming back to that more in a moment. But here's what, of course, the box looks like. The box looks good. I like the look of that. Let's just put that off to the side. Now, this Jason, I actually have, I think, 4 different reissues of this. The one that I actually chose for this example is lot number 2022. As you can see, it has the 22 on the very end of it. Let's put the box off to the side. Now, again, the reasoning why I chose this Jason was not for the fact it's not a bad-looking Jason at all, but because I like so many more Jasons before this guy. And again, when you see the one that's going to come after this one higher up on my list, you can probably see maybe why I had a hard time choosing which one is my least favorite. It maybe has also something to do with the fact he's got these strands of hair on the back of his head. I like the jacket. It looks pretty cool. But I think in the end, for me, it's a very uninteresting Jason when it comes to a figure. Now, a lot of times, actually, because I have myself several reissues of this Jason, I usually have one displayed with the sack mask. I really like the look of the sack mask. And then I have one with the traditional hockey mask. With this lot number, I thought the mask was painted a lot nicer. Some of the lots have had this Jason with a reissue. The mask was a little bit more tan in color, but I think this one balances the colors a little bit better on the mask. Of course, this one you can also peel back the mask, and let's just show you guys what it looks like underneath. Yeah, that's a gruesome looking Jason. We don't really get a chance too much to see Jason. We kind of get more reflections of him in the movie. The face is pretty cool, but again, like, just from a figure standpoint, there's, for me at least, so many better looking Jasons I have in my collection right now that just by virtue of that alone, this guy has to sit second last on my list. So wait, if he was second last on your list, what's the figure that beat it? Well, again, like, this one was going to be a back and forth, and in the end, the only reason why I chose this figure higher than the remake was more just to do with the fact it actually ties more to canon, and it's still part of the original franchise. Yes, my third least favorite Jason is the one from Freddy vs. Jason. Even though really I'm disdained by the fact that Kane Hodder never had the chance to come back and reprise his role. I think he earned that role, and yet unfortunately he was recast. Why this guy ended up taking this slot above the remake Jason was more just to do with the fact he still kind of has that classic look to the character. From a box standpoint, this is actually from lot number 2019. You can see dated down below just above the barcode. Of course, from the image wise, I wish really that the box could have actually had the glove holding the mask instead of this side profile Jason. With the way that they sort of teased the box like this, you would have thought that there would have been a companion Freddy that would have then had Freddy's face going the opposite way, but we never got ourselves a Freddy versus Jason Freddy, short of, again, the one that was part of that 2-pack. And the reason why why I didn't want to bring this one in either was just, again, because I wanted to stick solely to the Ultimate figures. From the back of the box, you can see that this figure just also does have the bleeding mask and it does have a teddy bear. So, hey, maybe I've given him awarded points just because he also has a teddy bear. For the accessories, we're going to rush through these quickly, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the figure. Yeah, you got yourself a flame effect that's going to go on 2 different styles of machetes, one bloody, one clean. And, of course, it does also come as a little teddy bear. Oh, little teddy bear. By the way, a lot of these accessories I do tend to keep back in the box. I'm not one that usually likes to keep a lot of these things in bags, just because it's so much easier for me, at least, to kind of keep everything where they are back in the original packaging, just because, again, if I need to go back and pull something, I know exactly where to find it. So there's the box. Let's bring in Jason Voorhees from Freddy vs. Jason. Now, again, the reasoning why I have to justify why I chose this guy over this guy, because, again, like, I know I don't like the fact that, unfortunately, though, we never got the chance to see Kane Hodder do this role. Why I chose him over him and why I bounced back and forth was more just, again, to do with the fact that this looks more like a classic-looking character, a classic-looking Jason. This is good, but I feel like this is almost similar to the same idea as the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. I like the look of Leatherface, but I would always have chosen to get like a Pretty Woman Leatherface as my favorite look of the character, just because it has a more nostalgic vibe to it. So while this Jason does look neat, I think I would have to say, though, the Freddy vs. Jason has him topped. Now, this one does have the cool-looking mask that has the scratches across the front. We could go ahead and just take off his mask. And there's Walnut Head Jason underneath. It's probably one of the ugliest-looking Jasons. That and probably Friday the 13th Part 8. Now, this one does also have a alternate bloody mask, so if you want to put that on instead. When it comes to my collection, usually I have the figure displayed with a scratched mask. A bloody mask never finds its way on there. Because I always really felt like if you're going to be giving this guy, let's just get this mask fixed. If you were to give this guy a bloody mask, I wish they had released a bloodied variant of the character, where there would be a lot more blood on his body. I had considered at one point, I haven't done it yet, to actually take one of these figures, because I have a couple of reissues of him, and just soak him up, like covering the rest of his body in blood. But I want to make sure, of course, I got the coloring matching, the same color of red matching. I don't usually end up display this guy with the red mask. I think just the classic mask looks a little bit nicer. So let's just take that off, put back on the regular mask. Now, do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? One of my least favorite Jasons is this one right here. I mean, like, from the outfit, it has a very similar sort of vibe as the remake, in the sense that he has himself now a jacket. He's got a torn shirt underneath that, a blue shirt underneath. The blue shirt always seemed a little off to me. Like, why would Jason be walking around with like a blue t-shirt underneath all these rags? The one thing I will say, though, and why this guy sits pretty low on my list, is he also has these big Frankenstein-style boots. Big and clunky, like the character wasn't tall enough. Also, as well, when you look at his hands, because they gave him sleeves like this, it makes him for very blocky-looking forearms. But again, like, he's a good-looking Jason. You know, he sits so low on my list just because, again, there's nicer-looking Jasons I have in my collection. But why more predominantly this guy takes the spot just above the remake is, well, this one does have, again, like the jacket, like the remake does. At least it has more of a vibe like the classic 80s style of Jason, and why this guy sits just above the remake. Coming up to number 4 for my least favorite, it's the day, unfortunately, the music died. That's because my 4th least favorite happens to be the NES Jason. No, not to be confused with this NES Jason. That was, of course, the 2013 Comic-Con exclusive. This one, in fact, was a reissue, and it dated on the back of the box as 2015, so it was 2 years later released. This one also you can tell right away because it does have now the floating head of Pamela Voorhees that wasn't packed with the initial figure. And wait a minute, there's a speaker on the back of the box. Well, unfortunately, the reason why the music died was because the sound chip, or probably more so the battery inside, has died years ago. If you had opened this up, you would have had a delightful sound of the music playing from the game. It still has the interior saying you and your friends are dead, game over. So really, from a box standpoint, it's really no different from the box that we get right here. The back of the box, though, if I did also want to show you guys as well, it's very similar. It does show Jason. Now, the original one would have had glowing mask, glowing weapons, hideous face. It's funny, though, that they have to advertise that he has a hideous face. We can all see he has a hideous face. This one, though, if you look in the back of the box, it does also have the exact same read-up. So that nothing changes there at all. But instead of, now the predominant feature is the hideous face as the first feature, deadly weapons, and now a floating head. Now, again, the reasoning why I chose this guy as higher on my list is again more to do with the fact that if you look at the NES Jason here released 2 years later, and then you were to compare it with the original NES Jason, you can see that it's more of a night and day comparisons. The mask is much wider in the case now of the reissue. It was more narrower of the Friday the 13th Part 3 mask. Bodies are going to be exactly the same, although there's now panel lining that they've given to any basically area that bends on his body. So just underneath his pecs, just in his elbow area, and right around this collar, they've also given him some panel lining there too. But what I do like about this figure is not only, let's just put him down here for a second, you got yourself the floating Pamela Voorhees head, which I believe is the exact same head that was packed in the Friday the 13th Part 2 box set that had the Jason sack mask and also the shrine to Pamela. So it's the same head, and it basically just comes now with a clear post, so it has an option then to stand and float around Jason. Now, of course, when it comes to the head sculpt here, let's just peel everything away here. The mask, once removed, let's go ahead and take this mask off also as well. The faces seem to be exactly the same. Now what they've also done in there as well is they've panel lined areas around the eyes. They've also made his eyes red. The original Jason never had that before. The collar is exactly the same. Again, like the shirt, everything is going to be the same with the two figures. The one other included accessories already, we'll just put the figure down here, is that inside he would have also had an axe and a machete. Now, I am unfortunately missing my machete. I don't know. Oh, it's actually, it's right over there. It's right over there. I'm such an idiot. That's the floating area where Pamela's head would be. Yeah, it comes with the axe, it comes with the machete. Both the head of the axe and the blade of the machete are done in a more opaque white as opposed to glow in the dark. But why, again, I like this figure a lot more is to have this guy on my shelf. To be honest, though, a lot of times I actually have retired this Jason, the original Comic-Con version of him. I put him back in the box because I don't really feel the need to have two displayed on my shelf. If I really was to choose a standalone Jason from NES, this would be the one that I would go with. It's got the opaque mask done in that kind of, I don't know what color you'd call it, aquamarine. Has the same coloring also in his hands, and it has it down below in his feet. Again, the articulation is going to be exactly the same as this one, but why this one was so low on my list and why this guy sits so high on my list, again, has the color choice of why they went with the mask the way that they did. The aquamarine, again, more in the opaque, gives me more the look of Jason that I really wanted from the NES that really didn't, unfortunately, deliver with the Comic-Con exclusive him and does a much better job with this figure. Because of that, this guy isn't my highest of favorite Jasons on my list, but it certainly does beat out the other one, the one that was the lowest on the list, the Comic-Con 2013 version. What's funny about my next pick is it's the 5th from the bottom, yet it's the 6th from the franchise. That's, of course, because we're talking about Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. Funny, though, enough that it's so low on my list, and yet it's my favorite from the franchise. This and New Beginning were kind of tied back and forth. At one point, New Beginning was really my favorite Friday the 13th film, but for a while, though, I always seem to have more fun watching Jason Lives. Let's check out the box before we check out the figure. The box itself does have, of course, the moonlight shining through the mask. It's just such an iconic poster. It's one of the Friday posters I would love to have in my movie room. Down below, of course, we also have ourselves the Jason tombstone. Show you guys what it looks like on the back of the box as well. And for the interior, let's open up the flap. I think we've actually spent more time talking about boxes in these videos than we have when we looked at the actual figures themselves. Now, this one does also come included. You want to see what it looks like inside? Okay, let's open up the box, pull out the contents. Now, again, a lot of these contents I have put away, also because as well, I've got a couple of lot numbers. And by the way, the lot number for Friday the 13th Part 6 Jason Voorhees happens to be 2020. I think there was actually one that was just a little higher than that, but I think I like the color scheme on this one just a little bit more. Now, this one does have, of course, the Jason Voorhees tombstone. It's got the fence post that, of course, Tommy tries to stab Jason with, not so successfully. An alternate hand, a butcher knife, and also, of course, his classic machete. Let's bring in Jason Voorhees. Let's bring back the box. Now, why this guy sits so low on my list? Again, you might be asking yourself, well, if it's your favorite Friday, why would this version of Jason sit so low? There's just a kind of combination of things. While I think that Friday 6 is probably one of the most fun Jason movies to watch, the look of Jason kind of had things a little bit more laughable for me. The fact that he's walking around with like garden gloves, he's got himself like a utility belt. I mean, they're all practical purpose weapons, of course, he's wielding around with him. He's got, of course, a spot to hold his hunter knife. The other side holds the machete nice conveniently. But always sort of this look of Jason seemed a little out of place for me. Of course, he does have wounds there all across the front of his chest. Of course, we can also as well take the mask. Now, one thing also that really kind of bothered me always about this figure was the fact that the mask isn't wide enough. One thing, though, about Friday 6 Jason is that the mask is really wide. It's very circular in shape. This one conforms too close, I feel, to the head. For a while, what I was really doing was I was pulling the mask from the retro cloth Friday the 13th Part 6 Jason, and I was sort of kind of finding a way to kind of just balance it off the face on this one, because I thought the mask worked a little bit better with this head portrait. Let's go ahead and peel the mask away. Now, there was a reissue that was obviously, I think, a couple of years later after this one. And why I chose this one, because I think the other one was a little bit too green. You can, of course, see the bone all visible on the front of his nose, like what's left, at least, of his nose. He kind of looks a little bit like Darkman. Darkman. Of course, he's got some bone there on the top. It's a neat-looking, gruesome-looking Jason, but we don't really get too much of a chance to see this actually in the film. You can kind of really Google Friday the 13th Part 6 Jason Voorhees underneath the mask, and there's a lot of behind-the-scenes shots. The mask, the unmasked face, does look kind of interesting, I will say that. But I think it probably is just one of those unfortunate victims of just having better-looking Jasons in my collection that I like just a little bit more. Of course, let's go ahead and get the mask back on this guy. I feel like he probably could have also included a couple more accessories as well. Not that I really wanted to have like the little MasterCard. Was it MasterCard? Don't leave home. No, American Express. A little American Express card floating around. Of course, like articulation-wise, it pretty much goes with the territory of all the other Jasons that we've already had a look at. So again, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking. This video isn't all about the actual articulation on these figures, but ball joints, heads, you know, again, you got your hinges on your arms. They swivel all the way around. Single hinged elbows, rotation there, upper torso ball joint. Yeah, I know. Swivels on the legs. They move forward and back, bends on the knees. All the territory that we're pretty much going to be covering with every one of these figures. I don't think the posability changes all that much. Now, if we were obviously talking about the Cult Classics Jasons, they would also be a little more statues and less articulate than what we're getting right here. Is it a bad looking Jason? I don't think so. But why, though, he sits low down on my list like this is more, again, just the fact that he's got himself a utility belt. It just seems like a little out of place of a Jason, and I feel that there's better examples on my list. We can thank Shelley for the next one on the list. Up next, though, is the Friday the 13th Part 3 Jason Voorhees, a new dimension in terror. Really, why is this guy so low on your list? First, let's look at the box. The box itself, one thing that's neat about this one is it does have the lenticular front cover, so it looks like the knife is coming your way. Down below, of course, you got Friday the 13th, all done in the wood grain with a little bit of blood trickling out the D. On the back, though, of course, shows you some images of what the figure can look like with some of the alternate accessories and the alternate head portraits. As for the box itself, let's open up the front flap. That's a little image of Jason Voorhees on the inside. I think this is one of the earliest Jasons that I had, not just counting this one, obviously, but also the clamshell case Jasons. Anybody remember getting those? Yeah, those clamshell case Jasons before we kind of moved into the territory of having these things shipped in boxes. As for the actual box itself, let's open up the front flap, pull out the contents. And again, because I have so many of these reissues here, this one came included with the wrench. It had the bloody knife. You want to see what it looks like? Careful. There's a little knife. Got the wrench. Got ourselves the pitchfork. And then on the other side here, got the fire poker. Another time we've gotten a fire poker. A clean machete. A bloodied axe. And of course, the trusty harpoon gun. Now, the one that we're looking at in this case, because again, I wanted to choose the best example of Jason, this happens to be lot number 20. So this was released in 2020. I don't think they've changed all that much. And I think really, like, final chapter, Part 4 Jason, has had more reissues, I think, than Friday the 13th Part 3. And again, reissues basically just means that on the bottom of the box, there's different lot numbers. I know we've kind of covered off a whole lot of them here on this channel. But sometimes the lot numbers do vary the paint jobs. And sometimes, though, the higher the number that you get on those last ending digits, usually it means it translates to a better paint job on the figure. So let's put that down here, and we'll go ahead and just grab Jason here. Now, I know you're thinking to yourself, well, why would you ever put Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th Part 3 so low on your list? Well, we're not really super low just yet. I mean, we're kind of like middle of the mark now. I mean, if you want a classic look to Jason Voorhees, you can't get any bit better, really, or can you? Can't get any better, really, than Friday the 13th Part 3. Now, he has actually two different head portraits. The one that we're looking at right now doesn't have the little wound there on the top of his mask. Just a traditional olive-colored shirt. He's got some nice blood there on the front. The way that they've actually handled the paint job here for the 2020 reissue, I think more subtly approaches the blood. So there's a little bit of blood there on his leg there as well. I mean, there's nothing really wrong with this. There's nothing. I mean, I couldn't fault this Jason for being a bad. If somebody was to say, like, what would you recommend for a best Jason to pick up in my collection? I wouldn't feel bad to say, like, Friday the 13th Part 3 is not a bad Jason at all. But yet, why is he so low on your list? Peeling away, though, the mask, you can see what the defaulted head looks like underneath. If you don't like this look to Jason. And by the way, this is the same Jason that we also got for the NES. You can also get this guy. Put him down here for a second. because this figure also did come included with an alternate portrait. Why is he having such a hard time standing? The alternate portrait did have, of course, now the axe wound there on the top of his head. Very bloody there. A little more wear away on the area of the nose. The chevrons there are still intact. We peel away the mask here. And now we have the bloody Jason. Chris is probably one of my favorite final girls, also from the Friday franchise. I think the blood is handled really well here. I like how it's super, super wet and slick. Yeah, that's not a bad looking Jason at all. So you seem to be singing the praises of part 3, humbled reviewer. So why is this guy sitting so low on the list? As you'll kind of see with all the figures that are now going to go ahead of this guy. So again, like this guy's kind of middle of the mark. He's not the worst Jason by far. I mean, there's definitely worst examples for me, at least on my list. But I feel like there's better examples, more unique Jasons that start to show up higher on my list. And just by that, again, he happens to be one of those, again, another victims. Sets a little lower on my list just because there's better Jasons I find in my collection. In a sea of hockey masks, be the one that stands out with a sack. Up next, in my favorite Jason Voorhees figures in my collection, happens to be the Friday the 13th Part 2 Jason Voorhees. I think what a lot goes for this figure is not only does he have a lot of accessories that are unique to this release, but also because, again, like this is a Jason that is completely different from all the other designs. Yeah, looking at the box things first, of course the body count still continues. There's Jason Voorhees. I'm pretty sure there's no girl that actually looks like that in the actual movie. The back of the box, this is what basically it looks like. You've got the Shrine of Pamela Voorhees. Pamela Voorhees' head, by the way, added points for this figure, is included with this release, and a couple of different ways you can display the figure. On the inside of the box, let's open up the front flap. There's a little image there of Jason Voorhees standing in front of the campfire. Wait, the campfire is included. It is right there. Campfire, of course, in order to have anything burning in a campfire, you need yourself a flame. The flame's right there. It comes also included with a knife. A bloody machete. Now, the thing that's kind of interesting about this machete is it's actually got a curved blade. A much smaller pitchfork, and you also got yourself the mining, pickaxe? You'll probably see as well that I'm missing one here. Don't worry, though. I've actually got a couple of these. Now, this one is lot number 2018. I think, honestly, though, I have myself a higher lot number than this as well. But I like actually the design of the 2018 Jason Voorhees. So there's the box, and here's the figure. Now, again, one of the reasons why this guy sits higher on my list than perhaps Friday the 13th Part 3 Jason is because, you know, if you have Part 4 Jason and you have Part 3, they're so close in comparisons that it's kind of hard to really have one stand out over the other. And yet, as you probably can already tell, Part 4 is going to sit a little higher than Part 3 does. So why does this guy sit higher on the list? Well, because, again, he's got himself a sack mask. He's also got himself... He looks to be like an outcast of Hee-Haw. Plaid shirt. He's got, of course, the coveralls there on the top. The coveralls, though, one thing I like about them is that actually they're a separate piece. They're rubbery and plastic, of course, overlaying the torso. But this guy had a lot of cool stuff going for him. And probably one of the reasons why to invest in getting more than one Jason is so that, yeah, you can display this guy in the way he looks at the end of the movie. Played by two completely different actors. Obviously, you can see as well, this guy has long hair in the back, full hillbilly style to him. A little bit of a beard there, or more of a goatee on the front of his face. Oh, not drop that. Let's bring it back right here. Ginny, definitely one of my favorite final girls as well. Who are your favorite final girls from the Friday franchise? Well, that's a lot of F's. Let me know down below in the comment section. But again, if you wanted to swap this head out, basically you just take off the sack mask. I have one displayed on my shelf with the sack. I have one displayed on the shelf without the sack. Now, this isn't the first time, though, we've gotten this one from NECA. Technically, though, if you want to predate this guy, there was also as well the Cult Classics release that came included with the Pamela Voorhees Shrine. Which, again, while we don't have the shrine with this release, we at least get the severed head of Pamela Voorhees. It isn't, though. I'm just going to put this guy down here for a second. Going back to earlier on my list, it isn't the same head, though. This was the head from the Cult Classics release, Pamela Voorhees. This is the new Pamela Voorhees head. A little bit more smaller in size. And also you can see as well, there's a little more dangling down below. Yeah, the articulation on this guy is going to be pretty much the exact same, so I'm not going to run through any of that. I do like the plaid. I think the plaid looks really nice. Even got the tag, though, on the back of the coveralls. So, like, this is, again, a prime candidate, not only for a good Jason to have in your collection. I wouldn't feel bad at all if somebody was to say, like, if you were to list top 3 Jasons that I should add to my collection, Part 2 would be pretty high on that list. I mean, it's the only time that we've gotten this look of Jason if you exclude the remake of him. And because, again, like, he's got such a unique look to this guy. Of course, they're, you know, like just the mask looks so neat. It's so hard really for him to see. I think actually they used some tape or something to tape the one side of his mask down. But, I mean, just to be able to walk around with one eye only showing. Just such a neat looking Jason. Now, again, like with this guy, again, like one thing I think has really going for this guy point wise, if I was to start tallying at points, is first of all, he does come with the 2 head sculpts. He has this one, a sack mask. He comes with a severed head of Pamela Voorhees. So if you need that, you got to get yourself part 2 Jason. And I think really, again, like a lot what goes into this figure is just also the fact that he has as many accessories as he does. If you want a campfire, if you want yourself the flame for the campfire, this is the best Jason to really get for that. The next Jason isn't a Jason at all. In fact, my 4th favorite Jason Voorhees happens to be Roy Burns from Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, which, stated earlier, Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, is my favorite of the franchise. For a while, though, it was Part 5. I think it happens to have some of the best kills around, and I really do like the idea that we have ourselves an imposter killer. For the look of the mask, it certainly is different, though. Now we've got ourselves glowing mask, glowing red eyes of a non-traditional looking hockey mask for Jason. Kind of goes really with the territory when you start to look at the poster and you think that something's not quite right about it. Maybe it could be telling you something. The back of the box, though, shows you many different images of Roy Burns wielding different weapons that he comes included with as well. The thing I really like about this figure is not only is it an imposter this time, but he also comes included with accessories that, again, we haven't seen in other releases. If we open up the front flap, there's a nice picture of Roy Burns inside. Come on, Roy, get your hands dirty. Let's open up as well the box. And I won't take out all the accessories. This, by the way, I think is probably my 3rd Roy that I have in my collection. By the way, too, as I say that, it probably would be helpful to tell you guys that this is lot number 2019. So we're looking at that. That's what, like 6 years ago? I don't know if there's been one that's been released after that. If there has, you can let me know. Of the accessories, though, of course, we got ourselves the stick with the rope or the belt strap that wraps around the guy's tree, or the tree and the guy's eyes. We got ourselves as well garden shears, a knife. There's also a tent spike, a bloodied machete, a longer post right here as well, those enchiladas, a road flare, and as well a meat cleaver. So there's a lot of good stuff for Roy to get his hands dirty with. Let's get these all back in the box. I want to make sure I put them all back before I start to lose things. I also do really appreciate the fact that when it came to later release NECAs, that what they also do as well is they put, you probably already saw with the other videos or the other figures that we've looked at during this list, the newer clamshells tend to have also like actual lids to them, like little actual plastic pieces that went and snapped down. Whereas like the older days of Ultimate figures, if you remember that far back, a lot of times though, a lot of the accessories were just taped over. So once you cut the tape or remove the tape, never really anything sat still inside the case. That a lot of times they would just sit loose and you'd be, you could go like this and you could feel the hands rattling around. So there's the box. Let's bring in old Roy here. To think all of it was just because of a candy bar. If it wasn't for the candy bar, none of this would have ended up happening. For me, in my own kind of mind as a fan, I really like to always think of the beginning of Friday the 13th Part 4. Remember when all of everybody's kind of pulling into the barn to see the, obviously everybody that's been killed in that film, but also as well, you see an ambulance pulling in. In my mind, I always like to tend to think that that's Roy. Roy's pulling in, he starts, now he discovers Jason Voorhees, and that's where he learns about the legend. For this one, also, you get a brand new mask. So instead of having the chevron triangle on the top corner, now you've got these elongated blue chevrons on the sides of the mask. Now, he also has a very different type of strap there on the back of his head, and a very different kind of head, too, because obviously he's only wearing himself a mask kind of cowl piece. The actual costume is also very different, too. So instead of having a t-shirt and pants, this version of Jason has entire coveralls. For a while, I think, even when we got the retrocloth release of Roy, at one point they had actually made the coveralls blue. To go back and look at the film, though, it's actually more of a teal color that he walks around with. But it's kind of really hard to see him because most of the time it's during the dark, or also it's raining, too, as well. Now, there's a little bit of sheen to the body, so it does look like he's a little bit wet. There's also, again, like the wounds that he has on the front of his chest. But let's go ahead and just lift off the mask and see who it is underneath. While it looks certainly a lot more like Roy, when he dies at the very end of the movie, oh, you just gave it away. I gave away a movie from the 80s. Come on now. When he dies, though, at the very end of the movie, and he's laying on top of those spikes, was I the only one that was looking at that thinking, that doesn't look like Roy? It looks like the guy was actually in charge of the teen place. It doesn't look like Roy at all. At least this certainly does look a little bit more like Roy. Really cool looking mask. Why this guy sits so high on my list? Simply put, just because Friday the 13th Part 5, one of my all-time favorites, top 3. It was my top 1. It was my favorite Friday, but that's been dethroned by Friday the 13th Part 6. It still is my second all-time favorite. It's got some of the best kills around, and I love the idea that it was more like a Scooby-Doo episode trying to guess who the killer is. Well, it turned out it wasn't Jason at all. It was somebody else, an imposter underneath the mask, and it made not only for an interesting character in the film, but also a very interesting figure, Jason, to have on the shelf. Well, we are moving up the ranks, yet we're still staying with Friday the 13th Part 5. Up next, in my favorite Friday the 13th Jason Voorhees figures, is still Part 5, but it's the new beginning dream sequence Jason. Now, what's interesting about this figure, though, is I have two versions of him. I'm going to bring in the other box I have. So this one right here is dated lot number 2022. The one that I had prior to that was dated 2018. Why invest in the idea of getting a reissue when you already have the figure already in your collection? Well, again, a lot of it has to do with the way they redeco the figures. And not a better example I have in my collection than the Dream Sequence Jason. I'm going to bring in the Dream Sequence Jason here. Now, again, this is the newer version of him. Actually, just before that we do that, let's just slide the boxes over here for a second. I want to show you guys the contents. Why this guy sits so high on my list is not just for the figure itself, but with all the extra accessories this guy gets afforded as well. The box itself, now unfortunately I'm only going to have a few things still in here because I've actually taken out some of the alternate masks. He actually has a total of 4 masks to work with. A bloodied axe, a machete, I believe that is an ice pick. I think it's an ice pick, another fire poker, and we got ourselves an alternate hand. Oh, and of course we can't also forget the fact he also has a Jason Voorhees tombstone. Because I could probably also open that all up. It's a lot easier to show you guys what that looks like. Yeah, there's the Jason Voorhees tombstone. We got the pickaxe, fire poker, machete, hand, and of course the bloodied axe. But again, like with this one, just making sure everything's closed up close shop before we actually leave for the day. 2022 is a notable date about this one because with the reissue had him really much more in a wet look to the character. Now this kind of really more depicts Jason Voorhees at sort of the dream sequence at the very beginning where Tommy is dreaming. He goes and sees that someone's digging up the lot for Jason, and then of course Jason gets up, starts proceeding and pursuing after Tommy, after of course dispensing of the 2 teens. Got some old worms there across the front of his face, his mask. But this one's a lot wetter of a look. If you don't like this look to Jason, maybe consider the idea of going back instead and trying to track down the 2018 version of him, because you get a figure that looks like this. It's definitely still wet, but it's no nearly as wet as what we're getting here, and it's a lot lighter of a color as well. Why I actually like having 2 of these in my collection is just with the amount of masks that this guy comes included with. So with this guy, being that he's so much more wet looking, I tend to actually usually display this figure with the mask on that has the worms. These masks, by the way, are not removable, so they're the only really exception to Jason Voorhees where you don't have a removable mask. But the worms just look gruesome. Oh, that's so cool. Super, super cool. But again, like this is a much shinier looking Jason. You don't like that look, you don't have to go with that look. Go with an earlier version of him, and then you get it's less wet. Why this guy has so high on my list happens just to again be the fact that he has all these alternate head sculpts. Let's just grab him off to the side here. Probably one of the more interesting heads that he comes included with is the poster mask. Now, we saw the poster mask with Roy's boxing, so of course it has kind of more of a hockey mask that you would see in like regular hockey playing. It doesn't have a removable mask, but it does have the glowing red eyes. I have been tempted actually to pick up a couple more of these over the years just because then I could have all the Jasons displayed with all 4 masks. Up to this point, I only really have the 2 Jasons. I don't know if I could see maybe there might even be another reissue coming out sometime later. But yeah, this has the white mask with the glowing red eyes. If you don't like that look, then there's also this version of Jason Voorhees, which essentially is still this version of Jason. It just doesn't have the worms. You don't like the worms? Kind of looks disgusting? Okay, you can go with this mask instead. Or the other alternate mask is this one right here. Now this is the mask that Tommy sees at the very end of the film where Jason is standing inside the hospital room. What I've done in the past, I just happened to swap the head sculpts back so you guys could see that these would look obviously the exact same. With this one that's not as wet, this is usually the head that I pop off and I replace it with this head portrait. Because again, you can't swap the masks around. So this one is the one I usually then display, and I have an axe in his hand. This is usually just the Jason I have displayed with the machete. His body, though, isn't that much different. I think it's actually probably the same body that they're using as the final chapter Jason Voorhees. While not having removable masks, the torso seems to remain about the same. Very wet down below here on the pants, even wet down below here on the shoes. All the same amount, supposedly, so we're not going to cover off any of that. But if you like a Jason that has tons of accessories and 4 different really good-looking head sculpts, you can't go wrong, really, with getting the new beginning Dream Sequence Jason. And that's why this one sits as high on the list as he does. Down to now the final 2, and if this is my number 2, then you'll know right away what my number 1 is. But coming in at number 2 is Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood Jason. Many collectors probably would have put this as their number one, but the reasoning why I didn't is just because I like a classic look to Jason, and I've probably said that a couple of times during this review. Friday the 13th, though, Part 7, Jason does have definitely one of the coolest looking designs to the characters, and let's get a closer look at the box. Of course, Tina is on one side of the blade, Jason then is on the other. On Friday the 13th, Jason is back, but this time, somebody's waiting. Here is what the back of the box looks like. Jason, of course, with also the available option of his split mask look. And this is also, by the way, lot number 22. So this was released in 2022. I have, I believe, a version that was just before this, but this is the one I like the most because I think the paint's just a little bit better. Opening up, of course, the flap on this one as well. Jason is got his sickle in hand, and just a cavalcade of many other accessories that the figure can also have as well. Also open up the box. I got to be careful with this one too because this blade right here, I believe, was like a cutting tool for trees. Always seems to come loose, and I don't think there was an actual tray that went over top of this. But yes, he does come include with that. He comes, of course, with the wood chipper. He also comes with a couple interchangeable hands, an axe. What else do we have in here? A tent stake, a machete, a knife, and of course there's his sickle up at the top. What is absent right now is his other alternate head sculpt, which I just have over here. So that's the accessories. Let's go ahead and put the box back down here for a second. And while there's the box, here's the figure. Now, again, I would have probably put this as number one. I'll talk more about why this isn't my number one when we get to the number one, but there's certainly no denying the fact that this is one of the coolest look of Jason's around. The thing I really have to commend, though, the team behind the scenes of Friday the 13th Part 7 is they did want to make the look of Jason like he has kept all these injured wounds that he's had over the course of the films. Of course, the spinal cord there on the back, he's got all this exposed bone, even like the side of his mouth also is chipped away as well. This one also does have a chain that's wrapped around his neck as well, so a lot of people tend to like this, have this guy displayed along with the accessory set of Friday the 13th too. Now, this is obviously the defaulted head for Jason Voorhees. It does have, like I said, the cracked away mask. You can remove, though, the mask, and that's what Jason's mug looks like underneath, which we do see at the end of the movie when Tina has her final fight with him. The head sculpt is fantastic, though. I love that they've, again, giving a wet look to it, the look of his face. He doesn't have as much, though, to his body. And I think also, now that I think about it, maybe the reissue had a more shinier a plastic paint to it, which I like more the duller look myself. Now, there's this head sculpt, and also as well, there's the alternate head portrait that has the open mouth. One of the cool things, though, about this version of Jason is that not only did he have this version of his mouth, or with this version of his face with his open mouth, but also to go along with this, they had the cracked mask that could open up in the middle. There was just basically a peg on the back of the mask here, and there was a hole in the back of his head. I know we've already done more extensive reviews of this guy. If you want to, feel free to give those a watch. Basically, the mask would then just plug on the back. I seem to have a harder time getting this on the back of his head. There we go. Now you can have it displayed with a partially cracked look, or again, you can have it open wide. Open wide. Such a cool looking head, though. For the articulation, though, on this figure, it's, again, pretty much what you would expect by now with all the Ultimate figure Jasons. Ball joint head, hinged shoulders, of course. You can't quite pull off a full T-pose. There's so much more sculpting that went into this figure that because of that, he has to unfortunately sacrifice a little bit of that in the shoulders. Where, though, he lacks some of the posability up here, he gains so much more when it comes to sculpting. Definitely one of the more cooler sculpted Jasons. And again, most people probably would have put this guy as their number one. He's my number two, so what makes my number one? So I guess by process of elimination, everyone would know by now that my favorite figure from the Friday films happens to be the one from Final Chapter. I have to also be very specific by saying that it's not just Final Chapter that's my favorite Friday Jason, but also this specific issue number. This is probably one of the most reissued Jasons of all the Ultimate figures. The one that I'm specifically choosing for my favorite happens to be from 2020. There's been several before that, even the clamshell case release of Jason's, and there's been several after that. This one specifically is my favorite color scheme of the mask. I'll talk more about that in a moment. Obviously, though, on the front of the box, the more classic look of Jason's mask with the knife lodged into the front of the eye socket. Not only as a kid do I remember this poster going into the Strip Plaza video stores, I remember seeing this poster kind of off in the distance and not having been, involved and invested into horror films back then. I always remember this. This also happens to be the menu screen from the Nintendo Friday the 13th also as well. But on the back of the box, there's Jason in his many different looks. With a machete, with a hacksaw, and obviously with wedged onto the side of his face, the machete. Ouch. And then, of course, there's Pamela Voorhees' tombstone, one of the many accessories that come included with this. I'm going to also open up the flap, show you guys what it looks like also inside. And there's also all the other accessories as well. To note as well, I didn't mention this during when we talked about the dream sequence, Jason, but if you had the chance to pick that one up also as well, it has the split fingers. That's one of the alternate hands. So if you want that hand for this figure, you want to get the dream sequence figure for that. Let's open up the top of the flap here. Carefully again to bring out the tray, just to make sure I don't drop anything. Yeah, you got yourself the Pamela Voorhees tombstone, an alternate hand. The corkscrew, we all remember that. A cleaver, both by the way are bloody. A cleaver, a regular knife. There's the hacksaw, a bloody machete, and the axe. Also, what's missing again up at the top corner is the alternate head portrait for this version of Jason Voorhees. Putting down again the box. The last time we'll be looking at these boxes. And we'll put the box right over there. And we'll bring in this Jason Voorhees. Which again, fully disclosing, the reason why I chose this one has a lot more to do with the reissue number of this. I mean, it's not that much different really when you look at it and start to compare it with the Friday the 13th Part 3 Jason, although notably with the Part 3 he has the higher shoulders. Masks, though, are very similar, but why, though, I chose this as my favorite Jason is I feel like if you're going to be picking a Jason as your top 3, you'd have to go, and not that I would want to sway you guys in that direction, but I feel personally for my favorite collection, I'd want to put like a classic Jason somewhere in that top 3 list. And while the New Blood Jason is such a good-looking figure, I feel like I'd be wrong to say that it would topple over like a regular Jason as my personal favorite. One thing, though, interesting about this version, this reissue of him, is the worn away section of his nose. This color has changed through the reissues, but the one from 2020 has my personal favorite color. It's got a lot more gray here on the bridge of his nose. The chevrons here, as you can see, are more worn away down below, and half the chevron, the triangle chevron, is missing above the eyes. Of course, he's got his war wound there on the top of his head. The head can also be swapped out for the alternate head sculpt, but just before we also do that as well, the figure does also have a removable mask. Let's go ahead and take the mask off right now. This one's a little harder. I always noticed that this one was a little harder to take off. And there is the mask, or the unmasked head sculpt for Jason, which is, though, different. We go ahead and reach off the one here from Friday the 13th Part 3. It is very much a different type of face. I always thought really like this head sculpt was better, though, for Jason. Even though while looking at it, you would think that the bodies are going to be the same. This one, though, is a little fuller down below, but he's a lot broader there on the top because of his shoulders. This also seems to be the same Jason, too. Like, we're going to reach off to the side here and grab. Where is the dream sequence? Dream sequence Jason. So it is using the same body for the dream sequence. If you were to remove the mask, I'm sure you probably would be able to see that underneath. Yeah, so same legs, same arms. Nothing really at all is different. There is also the option of going the alternate head route, which has a lot more blood on the top, still has the gray on the bridge of the nose, and still the worn away chevrons. To show you guys the differences between the two heads, let's go ahead and take the mask off this one. And right away, you'll notice there's the big gash on the side of his face. Two good-looking head sculpts, though. Now, again, for me, I like to personally, being that I am collecting the reissues whenever I get the chance to grab them, because I have a couple of versions of these, I like to display the figures on the shelf, one with the damaged face and then one without. I think generally, though, most of the time, at least when it comes to Friday the 13th Part 4, I mean, how many times I've said that title of the film in this video, but generally, though, what I like to do is I display regular Jason with the mask on, and then the one that has the damage on the side of his face, I usually keep him unmasked. The articulation is going to be the exact same on this guy, as really no different than all the other Jasons we've been looking at over this very long video. Thank you for that, by the way, to stick around for this. But again, like standard articulation in the arms, this one, again, you can get almost a 90-degree angle bend, but it's a little short on that. Still, it has the bend in the elbow. We're not going to cover off too much of the bases when it comes to posability on this figure, because by now, I'm sure you guys have already seen all of this. Upper torso ball joint, yeah, splits on the legs, yada, yada, yada. All the same stuff you're expect to seeing are all going to be on this figure as well. Why is he going to be my favorite figure for at least all the Friday films? It's a lot of F's, by the way. Is, well, again, I know most people probably would have geared right towards going with the Friday Part 7 Jason as their personal favorites. I can certainly see why a lot of people would have put this guy as their number one. There's a lot of good stuff going, not only for the way he looked in the film, but what then NECA translated over to the actual plastic figure. Still, despite that being the case, this would still be my number 2, just because it's got one of the coolest designs for Jason. But I feel like, again, like if I want to have a top 10 list, or in this case, I guess it was a top 11 list of favorite Jasons, I feel like I would have to be inclined to try to pick myself a classic Jason. And no better of a classic Jason is the one that we get from the Friday 4. So from 11 down to 1, that was my ranking of the Friday 13th Ultimate Jason Voorhees figures from NECA. I know, though, my list is going to probably change from a lot of other collectors out there that are right now collecting the Friday film figures. If yours does change and differ from mine, let me know down below in the comment section how you'd rank your figures. I certainly hope, though, you guys have enjoyed this very long video. If you guys did, well, do it a soul and throw it a like. If you guys want to stick around for more so, I hope so. Hit that subscribe, turn on that bell, and of course, come back. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.